Okay. Hi guys, my name is Jason Cogner, and today we're going to talk about the mobile application SDK and the mobility pack with the Citrix, starting with XenApp. It's something that's relatively new to XenApp, as got introduced last year. How many of you guys have heard of the mobile mobility pack or the mobile application SDK for Citrix? So, have anybody used it at all? One. Okay, so this. You guys have heard of it, may or may not have used it before. So basically, the way I'm going to, I'll do the kind of the slides too, but really I want to spend a lot more time on the technical stuff of it with some of the hands-on, so that's why I want to make sure that the technical difficulties got worked out before we started here. So the idea behind the mobility SDK, the mobility pack and things like that is, you have your environment today where you have, this is what we've been dealing with, desktops, right? And so with desktops, we really know that they're mostly corporately owned, and that means you know a lot about them, and we know how to deliver applications, and we know how to manage these things, right? So today, this is becoming more and more the norm. We have thin clients, and we have iPads, and we have mobile devices and tablets and all that kind of stuff. And for the most part, they're not corporately owned, so this is kind of a BYO deal, right? So if they're not corporately owned, that means you may or may not know what kind of devices you're dealing with beforehand, right? So that unfortunately takes away a lot of your delivery mechanisms that you're used to. We still have some, like we have, Citrix going in here, and we have some VMware if you're using Vue, and we have some RDP and things like that. But for the most part, our Active Directory and System Center and things like that are taken away from us. So this is what we're dealing with, right? You may have seen this. This is a screenshot from Synergy. So the thing that we're having to deal with now as administrators is this mismatch of HTML5, Apple, Android, Windows thing. So we have to support everything now because that's what the user expects. So in a mobile world, the question right here is like, how do I mobilize and deliver enterprise apps and data to your employees that makes them get what they expect? The user experience of going and having, opening up your iPad and getting a Windows desktop is not going to cut it with end users because that's not what they expect. It works, and that's what most people do. It's like, boom, there you go, you got it, good to go. But that's not what works now. So this is, take it or leave, it's kind of a grain of salt here because it's sourced from Gartner, and sometimes they get things right, sometimes they don't on their predictions. But this is kind of the market overview of what Gartner predicts. All right, so you see here you have this line going up here for user experience. That means my user experience is good. The higher that line gets. The application development effort over here is how long, application development effort is usually going to be money as well. So what's involved in development of applications and how good is my user experience get? So if you use virtualization and just say, here's an app as it is, that's easy to do. We can do this with VMware, we can do this with Citrix. It's very easy to do, but the user experience is pretty low. We can do it today, very little effort, low user experience. We can hire some kind of service provider, or we can wait on some kind of third party to do something. User experience is very good in these cases, right? Like the Apple App Store, native experience, what people expect. And there's not very much development effort because you're waiting for some third party, but that third party may or may not do exactly what you need it to do as far as the app goes, and you're still having to do some enabling. Now there's this new kind of mobile app platform, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But the development effort, actually I think this should be more moved towards the center a little bit because the development effort is not as much as developing a native app like an iOS or an Android app. The user experience is still good, and that's the development effort really should be moved back this way a little bit with native being way over there. But it's kind of like a framework for building apps, and some things like Phonegap or something like that will be in there. So this convergence zone is where you take your existing enterprise apps and you make them mobile, which is what we're going to talk about with the Mobility SDK. And like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Sources Gartner on this. They predict VB6 migration to hit the $1 billion US mark between 2012 and 2018. Of course, they predicted VDI would be like some quadrillion dollar market by next year or two, so we'll see how that goes. Okay. So anyway, all right, so that's the preamble to this session, but this session we're just going to talk about two things. Talking about how do you mobilize your existing apps. There's two ways to do it. One method we're going to talk about with things that don't involve any kind of code. And then yes, we will be opening up Visual Studio a little bit later, so be prepared. The second thing we're talking about some things that you can do with coding. Okay, so first of all, we'll look at the non-coding methods. See what we have here. So the things with non-coding methods, you have, I kind of group things together. These are kind of really the RDP type based solutions, with RDP being at the top, and then there's, well, this is Dell now. It used to be vWorkspace Request. And Aircom. Then you have some PC over IP and VMware. Those are grouped in the same over here. FrameHawk is a new one I just discovered recently. Anybody ever heard of FrameHawk before? I had not until recently. FrameHawk is a little bit different where they're actually looking at the wire. So the things that are coming from the application on the wire and able to give a mobile experience based off of that, which is kind of unique. But also, I've also heard from the people that have heard of FrameHawk and have dealt with them. It's more of a, you're dealing with a development house, and they're going to do some things custom for you, and it's relatively expensive. Then you have Citrix HDX over here. Then you have your HTML5 type solutions over there with VNC, and that iTap Mobile is a iPhone application that will allow you to do RDP. Then HTML5 and that Remote Spark is also, all of these are remoting protocols via basically HTML5 type things. So, all right, so what can you do for these non-coding methods? So the first thing, you know, if this is your primary input device on a very small form factor, this finger is a lot of times bigger than the buttons that you're trying to collect. So what you can do if you're just trying to do something really easy to make your user experience a little bit better, this is an Excel spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel, and you can use a set of registry keys to make some buttons bigger. So these things that are circled in red, it's hard to tell from the screenshot, but this is much bigger than it would be if you just publish this application. Same things with the buttons up there with the maximize, minimize, and close, and the scroll bar as well. So what I've done here is, it's hard to see, but you guys will get this presentation. Right here at this, there's a Word document right here. So let me escape out of here. So if I actually go click on this Word document, this is embedded in the spreadsheet itself. Here's all the registry keys that you can use if you want to take this approach. If you want to just give publish a traditional application to a mobile device and make some of the things that they would click on with their finger bigger, you can use that as well. Back to presentation. So when you get the slide deck, just double click that, it's in there. All right, so here's where we start to get into the Citrix Mobility Pack. Now, when Citrix released the Mobility Pack, there's actually two things that they released. There's the Mobility Pack, which we're going to look at now, then there's the Mobility SDK. Now the Mobility Pack is using parts of the Mobility SDK for you, so they're kind of the same thing, but they're really two different pieces. So the architecture of the Mobility Pack, which again, this includes to the Mobility SDK as well, is this. So you have receiver here, you have your XenApp server here, everything that is in, well, don't worry about the third-party code, because we're not talking about that, but everything that's in this kind of white block right here is new code, and then everything that's blue, solid, is modified code. So receiver core got modified, and the HDX got modified. All these blue blocks here are these white blue trim. They are all new pieces. So basically, what you really get out of this slide here is there's two new virtual channels that come when you install the Mobility Pack on your XenApp server. There's two new virtual channels that get added. One of them is, this is the Mobile Receiver Virtual Channel. That's what MRVC stands for. So I guess it's Mobile Receiver Virtual Channel, Anyway, so what that is, that gives you capabilities to plug into the mobile device. Then you have your Location Virtual Channel. The reason that these are two separate virtual channels is maybe you want to take some of the features of the mobile device, but for privacy sake, you need to disable the location. So that's like the GPS, basically. So if you, things like the Mobile Receiver Virtual Channel, they'll give you access to things like the camera, the orientation, the local kind of picker things, all these kind of things are here, but just GPS is there. And this is all, since these are virtual channels, it's all driven by policy. So maybe you want to enable one or the other, or both, in some situations, because Citrix policies, you know, you have all these different things that you can use to determine whether I turn the policy on or off, such as if you're coming from internal, based on who you are, things like that. So maybe just some people need to have that off by default, maybe others don't. Like I said, they're kind of hard to see, but they're all policies, so you have all the policy processing engine of XenApp to define when you have this on and when you have it off. Okay? So let's talk about the Citrix Mobility Pack. Basically, the Mobility Pack, what it's doing for you out of the box is it gives you this mobile desktop. So this, if you just publish this desktop, this is, you can see by the little tab at the top, this is running from an iPad. And like I said, it's an okay user experience, especially on an iPad. But some of the things, like some of the menus, are a little bit harder, and it's not quite exactly what you think. You'll notice here, if you publish with an iPad, with the thing installed, you have this little button at the top. What that button is a toggle switch between a traditional desktop and a mobile desktop. So if you enable the mobile desktop, this is what it turns the desktop into. This is the Mobility Pack. And basically what it does is it gives you the start button at the top, and it gives you kind of a swipe, nice feel to it. It gives you your bar down here, but it also turns your icons into kind of a more native type feel icon. And so hopefully my first demo will work here. What I've explained about the setup here, what I have here is a XenApp server and domain controller running on my laptop. I have my iPad connected through an ad hoc network from my iPad to my laptop, and we will be doing an air display on the laptop here. Let's see if I can get it going. Where is my air display? I guess it's not running. And fingers crossed, this works. Air display, yay. Okay, so what you guys are seeing right now is my iPad. We'll go into Citrix Receiver here, and we'll launch a desktop. And we'll wait. Questions so far? I mean, this is making sense. I mean, I'm going a little bit fast, but since you guys have heard of this, I wouldn't get too, just, Tasha gives me the thumbs up. I'm going to make sure it's okay. Need some music.
So while we're waiting, why is this not in by default?
Why is what not in by default?
So why is the SDK and all of the stuff for the mobility pack not just enabled? Why do you have to have it as a separate download?
Have it as a separate download?
Yes.
Okay, so fair question, because it came after XenApp 6.5 was released.
Fair point, but they normally, it's not been unknown that Citrix, I'm trying to keep my question within that little bit of the bar that's left.
Oh, that's good. It's actually longer than normal, so you got more.
Go slower. Citrix have before rolled up feature packs. So
Yep.
do you expect that in, say, the next feature pack release, this is just in, it's on, and enabled by default?
Not enabled by default, but in by default, yes.
So does that mean that there's an impact of putting this on your servers? In terms of resource, in terms of stuff? So, if it's so good, if mobility and consumerization is such a marvellous thing, and so many people are going to use it, why is it just not in there and enabled?
So,
I'm not putting the blame on you, by the way. It's
so,
just
but Carl has an answer. Webster.
Yeah. It's not fair if it's behind me.
Yes.
Just like doing bad Halloween.
Come up here.
Say,
For those of us who work in the large enterprise space,
Yes.
especially dealing with pharmaceutical companies, government agencies, stuff like that, requires a complete redocumentation and revalidation effort of the product. So when Citrix puts stuff like that in the product, then it really screws a lot of their customers. in the US, I don't know what Europe.
Yeah, we don't care about you.
Right on.
And there you go. Was that brilliant, Felix?
But no, back to your point though, it will be in by default. But for like the thing is, it's just the mobile SDK, which is basically the mobility pack, is really you're installing the virtual channel. So those will be in there. It will most likely be turned off by default, to where you have to go to make a concerted effort to turn it on. But it will be in there.
But there are no impact.
No, so on the impact side of it, for what if this would ever launch, for things like this, the mobile desktop, there's really no impact, right? So, but when you start to do things like application development, which we'll get into the next step of this when we get into coding methods, any kind of application developer go willy-nilly, and I want to go start uploading. You know, this thing supports camera upload, so if I take a camera picture with my iPad, it will use a virtual channel to go stream it up to the server to be processed at that point. And so, you know, if you start getting willy-nilly and I want to go everything, you know, get GPS coordinates and do crazy things with them, so the application developer could do something crazy, which would impact performance, but that's like any other application developer, that they could do something.
So inherently, adding the channels in, installing the pack is not going to make, it's not going to give an impact on your server.
Right.
Other than documentation, should that be required, but no one cares about America, so that doesn't matter.
There's only 2 Americans in this room.
Yeah, it's not as if it's going to be on video and on the internet, is it? No.
No. Yeah, so, I don't know. Have you guys seen the mobile app desktop before? It's really cool if it would ever launch, but I'm not sure why this is not launching. It's, you know, as with everything technical, this worked this morning before I came downstairs.
I've got a presentation this afternoon.
This is a live demo,
and you're not helping. You're not filling me with confidence that things will
keep
work.
this deployed. This is
Trying to interrogate the
presenting.
Yeah. Right on. So, well,
do you know when we talked last night about the user experience on the end device and being able to monitor that?
I should splunk that, right?
This would be really useful.
Have you tried to turn it off and on again?
No, reboot?
Right, snap.
No, but start this process again.
Well, I'm going to go back to the presentation. I'll keep an eye on it over here if it ever comes up. I'm not sure why it's not going up, but yeah, it is what it is. All right. Hopefully we'll come back to that. So basically all that was going to show you is turning that desktop right there into that desktop right there, and then show you can have everything. You have folders where it's when you click on the folder, it's much more touch friendly, whereas if you just do this desktop right here, you try to click on the folders, you might end up hitting, this says startup right here, this says Notepad or something, I don't know. That's SharePoint, or I mean these folders right here, you know, this being your input device, sometimes you accidentally click on the wrong folder. So the mobile desktop, it's still loading over there, the mobile desktop makes it much more touch friendly. That's basically it. So, and then this is a policy whether to turn it on and off, so you can turn this on and off for users, and then they have that little toggle button at the top where they can turn it on and off themselves or switch between regular desktop and remote desktop. And also, when you go to My Computer on here, it has a nice friendly browser for you for exploring your file system. There have been some articles written where maybe if you're using Res or Absence that you're bypassing some of the policies that they're trying to set with this. So I had to go find out exactly who wrote those articles, because I believe that that causes some problems if you're trying to lock this down by policy. Okay. So now we'll talk about the mobility pack. Okay. Well, we already talked about the mobility pack. Well, this is the other thing that's, I have a demo for it too, so hopefully demos will work sometime. Yeah, it's still going. All right. So also something cool that happens when you go and enable these features. Again, these are things I'm about to show you are controlled via policy as well. But what happens is if you hit like a text edit box right here, on an application, and this is any application, whether it's one that you developed or an existing one that, you know, just Microsoft Office or whatever, when you hit focus into this text box and your cursor is there, keyboard can automatically pop up on your device. Normally, what would happen is you would, in the Citrix receiver, if you put your cursor here, then you would have to go hit a button to have your keyboard pop up. Or you can hit it with 3 fingers on any time. So you just tap your screen with 3 fingers, that will make the keyboard pop up as well. But this is a nice thing. So if you click your focus in here, keyboard pops up. That's what the user expects anyway, right? Also, on a combo box, your mileage may vary. Sometimes this does not work, but I do have a demo where this does not work in Microsoft Office for some reason. Other apps I see that it does work, and I have a demo on it as well. But what happens is an application that you do nothing with, if it has a combo box, which is a drop-down box, you click that and it calls the native devices picker, right? So if you're on Android, it'll have the Android picker. If you're on iOS, it has the iOS picker. So rather than this thing actually dropping down on the screen, and if you have lots and lots of choices and having to scroll through and hopefully click the right one, it'll show the native picker instead. Much more nice user experience. Okay. And we'll see if it works. I'm going to cancel this demo over here. This, I don't know, I'm not sure why the desktop thing's not going on, but hopefully this will work. Okay. So let's see. Character map is a good one. If it'll actually launch. Alright, so if this actually launches, character map for you guys is just a native Windows, is built into Windows, and it's what allows you to get symbols. So if you go, I want to insert some kind of special character, this is what pops up. And this would be a good time for another question, Andrew.
I'm all out.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully this works. I'm not sure why the desktop didn't work, but let's see if this thing works here.
Maybe if it works, try the desktop after.
Okay. Come on.
Well, I've got a question. Oh, no.
Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Let's see, it is mirroring what I'm seeing here.
It'd be more fun if you just showed us the...
But I think
This use of technology is unnerving.
What's that?
Just show us just hold up the tablet, that'd be more fun.
Well,
yeah, but you can see the same on the tablet as we
yeah, it is. I'm just saying.
It's a blank screen.
Look, isn't it nice?
It is indeed not rice and mirrors.
It's a dead parrot.
It has ceased to be. It's only sleeping.
it's everything you want to be. It's blank.
Yeah. That's
So-
exactly what you want to.
So if the third one doesn't work, are you officially out?
What's that?
Do you have to wander off? Does it straight to your
Foul demo.
Yeah.
Have you tried turning it off and back on?
I'm going to disconnect. Try this again.
Will it work on an Android device?
Yes.
It does.
Have you tried using a slate?
That's like Microsoft Surface.
Well, that's slave.
Oh man. So anyway, what I showing on the slide, it would show up here.
You said the combo box doesn't work on Office.
Yeah.
Is that something that someone somewhere is fixing?
Yes, it is. So the way that Citrix implemented the combo box is basically a OS level call to what do you call it? Accessibility options. We'll see if this actually pops up the app here. So basically what happens is the way that Microsoft Office is doing their combo box is not the native combo box in the OS. And so what Citrix is doing is picking up that combo box drop down, intercepting with accessibility options that would normally show you a bigger or really high color contrast, things like that in Windows, but they're not, because they're not, it's just doing the normal thing. So Citrix is picking up into that, showing you the native devices picker and so on. But
So are you suggesting that Microsoft Office developers don't necessarily stick to Microsoft's own guidelines?
I'm not even sure it's a guideline. I'm just saying they're not using OS level calls to do their stuff. So, I'm just saying that the way Citrix chose to intercept this combo box thing may have not been well, it's not hitting all the use cases, so it is being looked into.
Because the interesting thing there, if it doesn't work for Office, which is only a small use case of an application, what likelihood are other apps? Because specifically, this is the type of solution that helps you deliver those in-house applications that you can't just quickly recode.
Right.
So if it's not being done properly, there's an insinuation here that it's not going to work even with the SDK.
Well, the thing about it with the SDK is you tell the app, which this is I have an SDK demo with the combo box. You tell it to pop it up versus relying on some kind of weird OS call. So if you're doing in-house applications, it's really nice because we can determine if you're on a mobile device or not, and then if you are, it's not doing anything. If you are on a mobile device, then we can start doing some cool things. So, and even if you are doing a in-house application, you don't have to do all or nothing. You can take an in-house application and start to add mobility features a little bit at a time. So, for instance, combo box, you could say when somebody clicks on this combo box, when they click on that, show the native devices picker if they are mobile. If not, then continue as normal. Let's see. So I'll just go on the plot here. Yeah. I think we found the problem. I think I was probably trying to reconnect to this funky session here. Again, live demos always fun, right?
Reboot.
Yeah, well, getting to that. I did that right before the session. That's probably what was my problem. Okay. We'll try it again. All right. So anyway, we'll see if the demo works now. I clicked on the wrong thing, but still, it works. Well, we might be rebooting. Fourth shot. All right, so we'll reboot this guy. And we'll continue with the slides as we go. And if we can do the demo, then we will. No, wait a minute. Lo and behold. I had an app that pop up, so just trying to see if it'll do anything for you guys. This is really interesting. Look, you guys watching me watch my iPad. All right, so
Let's go Angry Birds.
Angry Birds. Okay. I'm gonna wait for just 1 second here, and okay, we have that, and my air server is going here. That should come up. Okay, here we go. Look. Yay. All right. So here we are. We have character map finally launched. So this is using the mobility SDK. So if I click the combo box here, it doesn't work. Okay. It should work. All right. So if that gets the key. All right. This text box got the focus. So by default, the keyboard popped up. And I think actually, oh yeah, that was another thing, that you had to have one event happen before the combo box would work too. So this one should work this time. So there you go. That's another bug, right? So there's the local combo box, but I forgot that you had to have one other event happen before the combo box. So there's the native keyboard, and then that had to happen before the combo box. So it works. Yeah, your mileage may vary. So it's up to you whether you want to, these things are being worked out. Actually, this is using there's one newer revision of this that I don't have installed, so I haven't put the newest version on here. So hopefully that new version would fix that one, because I did point that one out to developers about the combo box. And also, like I mentioned, if you just need a keyboard to pop up, you hit 3 fingers on your keyboard, anywhere on the screen, and it pops up by default as well. All right, finally, demo work. Okay, so moving on.
If you talk to Alex, I'm sure he could edit that in post-production before it goes on the web. So it just appears seamless.
Sure. All right, something else that's cool is when your application goes in app, if you put this keywords mobile in your application description, there's some cool things that happen. And these are the things that happen, all right? So your session window size is automatically sized to your mobile device. I'm going to read through all these because you can see the, but one of the things that is cool, let's see, the rotation on the automatically resizes on the keyboard. So if you have kind of portrait and then you go to the landscape, your keyboard sizes and does the different keys on that as well. But what I do is this keywords mobile is not interpreted by the Windows receiver, so you can put this on anything, on apps, even if they're never going to be launched by a Windows device, by a mobile device, and this has no impact on if you're launching from Windows. Okay.
Excuse me, disables mobile device Zoom. Why is that desirable?
On Zoom, so let's see, that one was, right, disables mobile device Zoom in and out.
Why is that desirable?
Why is that desirable?
Yeah.
So if you're doing, by default, if you're doing the session window size to the mobile device, then you don't need the zoom. It doesn't mean that you can zoom in on the application, but by default, if you just have a published application like that was the one on this character map right here, it was not sized to my mobile device. So I can do a zoom in and out, but if you resize to the entire mobile device, then you don't need this, you don't really need this pan and scale, which is that basically the zoom in that point. So the pan and scale is if you're trying to move around a device with your finger, you can have a window that will just show you what you're moving around. So it's kind of like a magnifying glass. So you don't really need, I mean, if you're doing the full size, you don't really need that. So, but you can still, like if you have an app and you need to zoom in, do a 2-finger pinch and zoom,
Yeah.
you can still do that within
So
the
that's
app.
not the thing that's disabled.
Right, so that's kind of, that's Citrix's version of it. It's not like really the app version of it. So that's kind of a misleading term there. So, but yeah, you can still, like if you have a picture and you need to zoom in on that, you can still do that within your app. Or if you need to zoom in on text, you can still do that with the native pinch and zoom. Okay? All right, so coding methods. We're getting close on time, so I'm not going to have much time to actually show you, like I was going to actually write some code. But the problem with coding methods, if you're going to go down this route, you have your platforms. If I want to do, say, just focus on the top 2, iOS and Android, then here's what you're having to do with your development framework and what you have to do with your language. And so you have to have people that can do all this stuff and maintain 2 different code bases, because most of the time if you're going to do BYO, you're going to be dealing with iOS and Android, right? Okay, so we can get a little bit closer to the device without going native. So you can do HTML5. So HTML5, most of your newer devices will do that. And HTML5, there are some development frameworks that will let you get really close to the device with things like something called Phonegap. Anybody heard of Phonegap before? All right. Phonegap is really cool. I like it. What Phonegap is it's a framework that it gives you basically a developer an opportunity to write code base just one time. You compile your code to 2 different devices. You compile it to iOS and you compile it to Android, but you're using just one code base. So basically what Phonegap is doing is, it's hard to see here, but they're giving you access via basically just JavaScript to the accelerometer in your device, the camera, compass, orientation, all these type of things. And you write your code to where you're basically just doing a call to this Phonegap API. So it's all really HTML5, but it compiles to a native application. So there are some apps on the App Store right now that were written with Phonegap, but they're just HTML5. And so if I want to go write a brand new app, I can write it with HTML, HTML5, you compile it with the Java SDK for Android, or you compile it with Xcode for iOS, and then you can put that on Marketplace, or you can put it on the App Store, because they end up being native. The problem with an enterprise environment in this type of solution is you have a data problem at this point, because it is functioning and running on the native device, but if you're having some application and then you have your data in the data center, these are disconnected. So you either have to have some kind of VPN or some kind of web service to communicate back and forth securely. So really cool technology. Enterprise use cases can vary depending on what you need to access back to the enterprise. So the idea behind Phonegap is really the same idea behind the mobile application SDK with Citrix. So the idea is that you publish an application through XenApp that, and it gives you access to the mobile device functions. So if you have an app that's running on XenApp and say that I want to be able to use orientation, now keeping in mind it's running on XenApp, XenApp doesn't know anything about orientation. Or if you want to use GPS, XenApp doesn't know about GPS because the app is running on a XenApp server. So what's happening is the receiver on the client is sending the stuff like GPS coordinates back up to the XenApp server, or when an event happens like orientation changes, it's sending that back up to the XenApp server, and your application can react to that. So as Andrew was pointing out earlier, if you have in-house developed applications, this is really the marketplace for this. So what I'm going to do now is this responsive design demo. This is an application that I wrote that shows off a few things. It shows off orientation and picker. And so I'm just going to run it straight from the workstation here. Get this guy to go away. So what this application is doing, it's a somewhat of a fictional application. It is using edge site data to go out, is getting edge site data about clients used in your environment. And so this is the Windows application. It functions just like you would think a Windows application does. Here's a file menu up here. If I want to go exit or view, I want to change the chart type to donut or something like that, I can do that. I have here's the raw data behind what's generating that graph up here. Everything, this is a very Windowsy application. This is what you expect for Windows. Now, all I did is I published this application. I don't have the App Center up here, but I just published this application. It's the same exact executable. I'm not publishing a mobile version of it and a Windows version of it. It's the same published application right here. If you look at it, the path for it earlier. Current setting. It's hard to see right here, but this is the path I was running it for. C program files, x86, mobility, responsive demo. That's the published application right there. So if I launch that exact same application, fingers crossed, from my iPad, being a mobile device, different things happen. It responds to a mobile device differently. I'm sure my earrings on. All right. So what's happening here is, again, sorry about, I don't know, not sure why it's having to wait so long on starting an application, but what's happening is when this app is launching, the code behind that application is detecting that it's running from a mobile device, and it's going to do some different things in the application to make it more mobile friendly. And again, this is running, the app itself, published application on a XenApp server. And the things that I'm going to show you are things like reacting to orientation. An application on a XenApp server has no clue about orientation, but because of the coding in there, it's going to react to an orientation change if it ever launches. Questions while we wait for this one to launch?
I'd like them to change this. I'd like this dialog box to be like a ZX Spectrum. Do you remember when it was loading from tape and it used to have the little wiggly lines down the side, little high-pitched noise? I'd like that to happen.
And the sound.
So if you can make that happen, that would be really cool.
Right on. Okay. Sure.
So
And
yeah, you start that in.
Yeah.
Listening as well, Carl.
I would like sound also. No sound for the tape. That would be great.
Yeah,
They've
yeah,
got
yeah.
massive stalls and a huge election, but what we want is some wiggly lines on this.
Yeah. Yeah, this normally, I'm not sure if it's just, there's not, I mean, it's not wireless because I'm going from wire, I mean, here, I'm not sure why it's taking so
Star Trek sounds
crazy long to do.
Top
It's
forum.
been too geeky now.
Pub forum, it's, yeah, pub forum, there you go.
I like to reference it when people.
Or don't give gear to your Mac or PC.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
So
maybe it starts.
this normally launches very quickly. Like you don't have time to hear all your fancy sounds that you want.
It's all about the customer, Jason. It's all about the customer.
But maybe you're running this under this virtualization under your Mac.
Mhm.
thing.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe it's a problem you have this presentation open which took a lot of space and this memory management is maybe.
Yeah, if you went to
Well, that is the problem. I think if we wait long enough.
You think so? Yeah. So it would be cool if I showed you. Actually, I have a
I thought that was
screenshot.
stand-up time.
Yeah. So screenshot what it would look like. If, and I'll show you in real time. So that's, you know, you guys saw that, right? And if you launch it with mobile, basically this is what it looks like. So by default, it shows you the graph without the table under it. There's no menu bar at the top. All the Chrome is gone. And the Chrome in Windows world is all that blue bar at the top and the sides and all that stuff is gone. And then this is by default. These are 3 different screenshots here. So by default, this is what it looks like. You touch the graph, it pulls up the native device picker to allow you to show which kind of graph I want to look at. And I chose donut here. And so here's the donut chart with all this stuff. And then if I turn the device on its side, then it shows you the table that we were looking at earlier. And again, it's, and the graph is gone. So these are 1, 2, 3 different views of the same application. And so what's happening is we're using the native devices picker, and then the application is returning an orientation change so that when you change the orientation, it shows you this other graph, this other view instead, because we're dealing with a smaller real estate here on the screen. So it gives you a much nicer mobility feel. Okay, and let's see, that's about debugging. And actually, I was going to show you guys some code, but I only got 2 minutes. I do have some coding examples on my website, jasonconger.com, if you want to go check that out. Basically, in this mobile app, or this responsive demo, when it does work, it's up there as well. So, because the demo gods are not smiling on me, we'll kind of cancel that. So we'll take questions. Questions?
Could you maybe tell us why we don't install it as a default?
Why you do not install it as a default?
It seems like nobody has it installed today, so are there any worries that we should know about or areas?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with installing it. The reason that it's not part of the product right now is because it came out after XenApp 6.5 was released. I expect this to be in a feature pack to when you install a feature pack, whatever, that is just in there. You get it as a feature pack and it's on. Now you turn it on and off via policies as far as what you want to expose. So I expect those will still be disabled by default, that you would have to go then enable, because if you are publishing a desktop for iPad users and that's what they always get, and all of a sudden it's different, then you get user revolt at that point. So you have to kind of have some kind of rollout strategy. Hey, everybody, we're going to start doing this thing, start announcing it, and then turn it on. So that's one of the reasons it'll be turned off by default. But I have not run into any issues with it on anywhere. And I've been doing it since it first came out.
But it's not intuitive yet.
As far as not intuitive, which part not intuitive?
Well, if you have, I have it running actually, but especially when you run apps that are not aware of this feature, it just switches back to the native desktop. So it switches forth and back. So it's not intuitive yet.
And so you have experience where, like, if you're doing a full desktop, publishing a
Yeah,
desktop,
yeah, I have it running now.
right?
And if you start, for example, the Internet Explorer, it just switches back to the classic desktop.
Right, okay, yeah, so his point is if you have some apps that, like, he points out Internet Explorer specifically, if you go launch that from your mobile optimized desktop, then the look and feel of all the background stuff kind of switches on you.
No.
So if your apps can see your location and use a camera and stuff, are there policies where you can, Citrix policies, you can go, if your location is somewhere, don't enable stuff?
All right, so if there's a policy on specific location, or, I mean, you can have policies on based on IP address and user and all the traditional policy processing.
But can you use that GPS location?
Yeah, you can't use that GPS location. That's a good idea. Citrix. But that's a good idea to be able to use the GPS location. Of course, that has to be on first, and as a policy, and then based on the GPS location, turn it on.
But you can send signal to the application and say, okay, GPS is out, go to this menu and start it, you know, like
No,
normal.
Yeah, but
Like
that's
normal.
up to the application designer to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's not so big issue or so big challenge.
Right. So we're out of time. Any other questions? Just
Yeah, what about the Office, the
Yep.
integration, Microsoft Office? How does Citrix capture all those menus, things like that? Is something standard to take care of that?
it doesn't right now. At least this release.
But I heard about Citrix will create some developing on the mobile tech to take care of all the Office, things like that.
Right. So I mean, not all the Office. I mean, on the mobility pack, the things you would get are things like the keyboard pop-up and the combo box and things like that. That's being fixed from Citrix as far as being able to drop those down with native feel. Other than that, I don't work for Citrix, first of all, so I don't know exactly what they're planning, but I doubt they're touching anything else in Office.
You said there's a new mobility pack just being released?
Yeah, and the things that I know of for sure is the way that they're dealing with camera. So if I take a picture from my iPad, especially this iPad 3 HD camera, the size of that picture is going to be very large to send up over a virtual channel to the Citrix server. So they're working on the compression and then also what they send as far as the, what do you call the metadata around the picture, I forget. Yeah, the EXIF information as well, capturing that up and sending, because they don't by default right now, so capturing some of that information and sending up as well with the picture. And also on the Android device, if you take the picture, it actually sends a mirror image of the picture to the server that fix that. So like if I take a picture looking this way, then my picture would show up looking this way on the server.
Question is, did you try this with the Office 13?
What, right, what?
This mobility, it's getting better than with old Office or not?
As far as Office goes?
Office is now, you can have Office 2013.
Right.
Office 13 is yesterday.
Right, yeah.
Announced. Did you try it?
No, I have not tried it, no. I have not tried it with the newest version of Office.
If you were trying to support an application for mobile users, is the development time less and the complications for business less with the SDK than just creating a mobile app?
So, excellent question. If you are, most in-house shops are going to, well, I say it, to the space that we work in, are probably Microsoft developers. I mean, from what my experience, you guys are welcome to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you're delivering Windows applications, people are normally writing Windows applications, they're normally writing them with C++, C#, things like this that are going after Office. And so if you just want to start picking parts of it, since you can, with the mobility SDK, you can say, all right, am I running from a mobile device? If yes, that could be a Boolean set in your code there, and say, all right, when I come to this picker, pop up a native device picker, and it would only work if you're on a mobile device. So your regular Windows, you're not impacting the Windows people. And so you can start to mobilize certain features of your application. So you can do, if you have some big application, you don't have to go rewrite the whole thing, you can just start picking in some things. If you wanted to have an application, then you're talking about a rewrite of the application. So it's really targeted at Windows developers and you can do a little at a time versus a total rewrite.
Do you know of any plans of say, third-party graphics library vendors like Qt, GTK to implement this Citrix coding SDK? Because I think this would be the correct place. Either do this in the AP, in the Windows AP exactly, or when not possible, when Microsoft doesn't want to do it, to have it in a third-party library that can be used. And this third-party library could be optimized for Citrix, could be optimized for remote desktop protocol, or for whatever. This method you were showing is very, I think it's very labor-intensive for only exactly one receiver. Called Citrix world, and it's not general enough.
Right.
So do you know of any plans of third party taking this up?
I know some plans with Citrix specifically getting more into the Phonegap type scenario. There's some other company that they're partnering with, it's not Phonegap, that's doing the same thing to get more and more into where it's a native app that's delivered with receiver, is not running on a XenApp server. It's delivered with receiver, and then the application wrapping, so application management, mobile application management around that, giving a sandbox and things like this. So, but getting into some of the graphic libraries itself, I'm not, like I said, I don't work for Citrix, so I'm not privy to that type of information. But the things that I do know, they're starting to get more down this route with some of the Phonegap type stuff. And we've been out of time for a while, so she's giving me the dirty look.
Thanks very much, Jason.
Thank you.